Welcome back to the Pastor's Podcast. Pastor Scott here with Sabryna Azar. Azar? Did I say it right?
I think it depends on who you ask.
So if I'm asking you,
I would say Azar.
You would say Azar. But you just told me that, and this is why I said I had to push record, because while you would say Azar, Pastor Ara has corrected you on your name.
Yes, not actually just me, but several people at the church. I think Matt is one of them. The first, probably during my membership ceremony, Pastor Ara came up and said, "Matt said your last name wrong. It's Azar."
Where's the name from?
My dad is from Lebanon.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. And regardless of how they would pronounce it in Lebanon, you pronounce it Azar.
Yes.
I'm assuming your dad pronounces it Azar.
He does, yeah. I mean, if he's speaking Arabic, it's pronounced differently, but when we're speaking English, we say Azar.
and that's interesting. It would make me wonder if that's like, how he pronounces it in English, or he's like, so many Americans say it this way, this is just gonna be it now.
That's entirely possible. He changed his first name. It used to be Saleme, and he changed it to Sam when he came to America. So entirely possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for joining me for this, Sabryna. I'm excited to talk a little bit about what the Lord's doing in your life, hear a bit of a testimony of how he's been working and in your relationship with all of Crest as well. We'll get into that and describe it a little bit, but maybe I thought it might be helpful just to start with a little bit of an introduction for those that are listening who don't know. I know lots of people know you. Actually, first of all, I also want to start by just thanking you on air again for doing this today after a long morning of teaching the kids, and then you were helping lead a life group just before this. And so it's been a long day already.
Yes, thank you. It's been a good day, but a long day.
Awesome. And you've got jet lag. So
Yes.
So this is going to be great. This is going to be like an entertaining, we don't know what's going to happen. But for those that don't know you, how long have you been at Cornerstone? How did you get connected with the church?
Yeah. So I joined Cornerstone in about June of 2024. So I'm almost coming up on 2 years. I actually used to live like a block up before I found Crest. And when I found Crest, I had already moved. So I live in like Westchester now, but
as Christians do.
Yes.
You become a Christian, you need to move to Westchester.
Yeah, that's the thing. Yeah. But the church that I grew up in and where my family attends now, one of the pastors, Joe Keller, recommended that I visit Cornerstone during my search for a church because he knew you.
Mm-hmm.
So my first
Joe's
visit,
a good friend.
My first visit, I just came here and it felt like home, like growing up at the church, Grace Baptist in Santa Clarita. I think I was accustomed to a lot of things, and trying out different churches in LA, it was very different. But Cornerstone welcomed me right away, and it felt like home.
So actually, maybe before we dive in, would you mind sharing a little bit about the story of you coming to Christ?
Yeah. So let's see where to start. My family, I'll start with my parents. I didn't really grow up in a Christian home, but when I was about 16, my parents came to Christ. And
it's got to be a huge transition as a teenager.
It was huge. My family before that wasn't really close, but once they came to Christ, it was, we're having family dinners, we're going to church every Sunday, you have to join youth group. And I did not take to it. I entered a very rebellious phase. And so once I hit my 20s, moved out, just kind of lived my own life. And somewhere along the way, I guess in 2024, my brother-in-law is a pastor. And so, he wouldn't do it too often, but once or twice a year, he'd ask me, have you been reading your Bible? Do you have any questions? Like, do you want to talk about it? And so that year he asked me, and I said that I was, kind of open to it. And he suggested just starting with reading. And so that's what I did. I started reading my Bible, and I got to a point, finished all of Genesis, and got to a point where I felt like I started to know God, but hadn't actually opened my heart to him. And so I, one day just went to the beach, because I always said this, but like the ocean, I think, is something that I look at, and it is my place of comfort. Like, I look there and I know that God is real because there, nothing else could create something so beautiful. So I went there and I just listened to worship music and opened my heart to God. And I felt him for the first time. And so I've been changed ever since and continue changing for Christ.
Wow. Okay. It's just incredible how the Lord uses that, and oftentimes uses both his word and his creation to like draw us in, to show us himself, and even just meets us in specific moments. I want to take a step back real quick before we dive into the rest of this, because you mentioned your brother-in-law who like once or twice a year would just kind of keep asking like, hey, where are you at? I think that most of us who've been Christians for a long time, like it's really tempting to either like over ask, like make it the only thing we're talking about, or be like, well, they told me they're not interested, and so I guess I'm not going to bring it up again until they do. Like, when you look at that and kind of how he kept engaged with you, like what about that was helpful, or how did he do it in a way that was helpful, or and ultimately it's only like the Spirit was moving in that one moment, but I'm curious about that in a way that he was engaged, but it didn't drive away your relationship.
Yeah, I think that was kind of a long relationship build between my brother-in-law and my sister. So like growing up, I think I love my parents to death. But when I was growing up, I think we're still trying to find the balance of how to do that lovingly. And so once I moved out of my parents' house, I actually moved in with my brother-in-law and my sister. And so I had a few years of living with them where I did not know the Lord, and I still felt loved and accepted by them. And so they were bold in their faith. They would talk about it often. Obviously, I mean, both my sister and my brother-in-law work at their church. So they were very vocal, but when it came to things that we disagreed on, it was very simply, that's not our belief, and we want to share that with you, but we love you still. And so just knowing that, I think, helped build a foundation of like, I respect where you guys are. I respect the faith that you have. And I think it made me more receptive to occasional like conversations about it versus feeling like it was just constantly thrown at me in a requirement to feel loved.
Well, it's so cool.
Yeah.
What a beautiful picture.
Yeah.
And I mean, so many answered prayers too. Okay, so there's lots of different angles of, I'm sure, your life and callings and vocations and things like that we could talk about, whether it's, work or the ways you're serving and, life group and everything else. But I want to zoom in a little bit on your involvement with Olive Crest and getting connected with just caring and helping with kids in the foster system. Well, actually, maybe we should start here. What is Olive Crest and what do they do? And then we'll maybe talk about how you got involved with them.
Yeah. So Olive Crest is a Christian nonprofit organization. So their entire goal is to step in for families in our communities that are in need. It's what they call short-term housing. They do also assist in some foster care situations as well, but their primary focus is short-term housing, and they call that hosting. So the primary goal is for families or single parents most often that don't have a community themselves. They don't have family or friends to help out with the kids. The entire goal of Olive Crest is to help care for their children when they're going through tough things. So a lot of what I've seen is families experiencing homelessness, parents that need to spend time in the hospital, maybe it's rehab, things like that, where they don't have anyone to take care of their kids. And if Olive Crest were not to step in, foster care would have to jump in. And so
it's like a step before
exactly, yeah,
foster care. Yeah,
the primary goal is to give parents the support that they need without requiring their children to go into the foster system. We want these parents who very clearly love their children and are just going through a short-term thing to be able to get their kids back.
That's so. I mean, it's such a huge need right? In some people's life. I mean, when oftentimes I'm sure they feel like there's no other option. Okay, so I'm curious how you got connected to Olive Crest. So, I mean, I want to hear this story. Oftentimes on the Pastor's Podcast, we are highlighting organizations that are like key partners that we've partnered with for a long time. Olive Crest is not one of our like official partners, and we're super thankful for all the work God's doing in all sorts of other organizations that we're not limited to that. But at the same time, Olive Crest is also an organization that we've known and had relationships with for a long time over the years. How did you get connected to Olive Crest or to the opportunities there?
Yeah. Funny enough, I actually, before I started attending Cornerstone, I was looking in my community at other churches. And after joining Cornerstone, I was still in touch with a few people that I made friends with that worked at other churches. And so one of the things that I loved about Cornerstone that I couldn't find at other churches was how in touch with the community Cornerstone is. It's important to me that a church is not just a church on Sundays, but it is a church that is there for an entire community every single day. And so I met up with a friend from another church and was just telling her that I was interested in doing kind of a big sister program or something with the youth. And she mentioned that her church is just now starting to get into community, and that one partnership that they were looking at is Olive Crest. So she recommended checking it out. I've always been interested in the foster care, but I live in a smaller place. I don't have like a separate bedroom. I know it's a lot of work. I travel often, so I didn't think I could do long-term commitments. And Olive Crest kind of met all of that. It could be short-term, so I can do it when I'm not traveling for work, and it's all based on availability, and it just kind of worked out. So she recommended it. I looked it up, filled out the application, got in touch. They do training, they do home visits and things, but definitely props to friends at other churches and like-minded people.
Awesome. Okay, so I mean, I think a lot of the things you just said are really intriguing, but it raises a lot of questions. Like helping, I think oftentimes people are like, wait, helping with in this foster care world, like how do you even step in to like put a toe into that? Like you said temporary, you said short term. Oftentimes, like these are not phrases that are involved in the foster care world. So how have you been serving at Olive Crest? Like what does that look like? What are the opportunities that you've had?
Yeah. So how I've been serving, I do serve as a host family. And so the way that Olive Crest works is they kind of give you a radius based on where you live, and any family needs that they send out over email or over text. And so they will, in their text message, give you information. Is it a boy or a girl? How old are they? Are they, is it one child or are they siblings? How long do they need hosting for? So it can be anywhere from one night, maybe, a mom or a dad just needs to go to the hospital and they don't have someone else. And I think they max out around 3 months before they say, okay, maybe we should be considering other options. So in their notification, when they're asking for support, they give you how long a parent needs support for, and then their general city and why the parents need support in that moment. So you will know before you even call Olive Crest. The ones that I've taken, I've had a 10-year-old who was dealing with abuse in the home, and the mom wanted to just have a weekend to try and get out. I had 2 kids who mom had them both really young. I think the first one she had around 12 years old. The oldest one had already been in the foster system. She finally got her back, and she was just really tired. She's 18. She has 3 kids at this point, and she was just exhausted, and she just needed a break, and she didn't have anyone else. So I took them for a few days. And then another one was a hospital stay. Mom had some medical issues going on. And that one was a little bit different. I, got to the house, took mom to the hospital, and then took the kid. Oh, wow. So sometimes it's doing a little bit more, doing whatever you can, but it's always a little bit different.
That's fascinating. Okay, so you said Olive Crest does, anything from 1 day to 3 months. Is that is 3 months kind of the cap for what they do generally, or is that just the cap for the kind of hosting you do? So
that's the cap generally.
Okay.
I think after that, that's when they say, okay, maybe we should be considering foster care. And they do also partner in that way. And so the other benefit is like I live in a 1-bedroom place, so I don't have another like room for kids to stay in. They do a home visit and they make sure that there's nothing dangerous and things of that sort. But especially for what I am for is, stays under 4 or 5 days. For short-term stays like that, they are okay with like, oh, the kid can sleep on your couch or we can blow up an air mattress. Like both of those work in those situations. So it's a lot more flexible, making, a lot more people able to support.
That's so fascinating because I think most people in a 1-bedroom apartment would be like, I just can't. Right? Like I've
given up a lot of privacy.
but even with they'd be like, I don't know, nobody would let me. Right? Like somebody like, but the idea that there might be these even really short stays where, somebody sleeping on your couch or kids on an air mattress in the living room, like might actually make sense.
Yeah.
Might be what's needed, might be a way that you can share what you have. And obviously, I mean, I'm assuming that if on the front end they know like actually this is like a 2-month need, then they're not only can you not do that with your travel schedule, but I'm assuming they're in that type of situation. They're looking for more. Like somewhere where somebody can have a private bedroom and
exactly
things like that.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fascinating. So what's surprised you? So so you've been doing this for over the last year?
Almost.
Okay. Almost a year. Maybe in that time had 3 or 4.
Yeah.
Hosted like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah.
Okay. What was something you didn't expect?
I don't think I expected all of the tough moments. There are moments where I look at it and it feels like glorified babysitting in some way. And then suddenly 2 hours later, a child is sharing with you things that they have been through that you never expect a child to go through. And so I've also just been surprised at how heavily I have to rely on God to give me the right words and the wisdom to help children through things that they shouldn't be going through. Sometimes it's questions that I have to answer that I don't even know if I've been equipped properly to answer. But, the amount of relying on God and just the energy that it requires. I don't have kids. I live alone. I'm very used to my quiet lifestyle. And so usually around day 2 of hosting, I hit a level of exhaustion where I've had like 0 silence for over 24 hours. And I think I will get used to it eventually, but it's always surprising for me in the moment.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. What is it that drew you to this kind of opportunity in the first place? I mean, I know you talked a little bit about just wanting to be connected and, that, but like, as you chased this down and heard about this kind of opportunity, what is it that drew you into that?
I think that God has called me to children in many different ways. I think that younger me experienced things that a child shouldn't have gone through. And so it was something that I wanted to do to be there for other kids that may be experiencing it, to have insight and help talk them through things. But in a more real way, I think that God has blessed me in a lot of ways, and it was an opportunity for me to give back. I know that I have a good enough size place that I can fit a couple kids on the weekend. I have the money to take them out for dinner and show them Christ in a different way. And so it was just a unique way for me to give back, and a different way for me. Like I really do value my privacy. And so my home is like my solace. Like anytime that I need to relax, it is at home. It is like phone is off and I am not talking to anyone. And so opening that up made me vulnerable as much as I think it makes the parents vulnerable to have to ask for that help. But just, I think, surrendering myself to God in a different way.
That's really beautiful. And one of the reasons I appreciate it is, I kind of mentioned it, but I think there's a lot of ways that as a single woman the 1-bedroom apartment who values her silence, you could look at needs around you and be like, you know what, I want to help out, but like that's not for me.
Yeah.
And I think saying yes to these things and stepping into these messy situations isn't because it's always like the best fit or this like identical or this ideal, fit that you can just do seemingly effortlessly because but there's capacities you have and resources you have, and there's needs in our city, and it sometimes just requires a heart that says, all right, Lord, like, let me step in and see what you do. It makes me think of 1 Timothy 6 when he's calls us to, at the very end of the chapter, calls us to be, he says, rich in good works. Then he says, generous and ready to share. And in lots of different contexts, I talk about that phrase, but I love that phrase, ready to share, because I feel like that's what this looks like, right? It's a life that is lived enjoying the blessings you receive and enjoying the silence that God gives you and the resources you have. Like it's not a denial of that, but it's also living with a readiness to share those things that even come at a cost that have been a blessing to you, to be step in and be a blessing to others as well. How has that? So we talked a little bit about how it's like surprised you. Are there ways that you've seen it as a blessing, or maybe even what has it taught you about yourself, about God?
Yes. I think 2 ways for me. The first one for me is the importance of the community that you have surrounding you. And so in moments where I am deciding to host, my DC group jumps right in. They are offering food. They are offering, I've had a couple times where parents didn't have car seats. And so my DC group is very quick to lend me a car seat, doing whatever they can. But even bigger than that, I think what I've experienced in my DC group and the importance of community is the prayer that we have. It is so important when you're doing something like this to have people that you can go to and talk to, because these kids are going through things that really they shouldn't have to go through. And so as an adult, like holding that in was so hard. So being able to go back to my community group, share things with them, and get their feedback and then pray on it meant so much to me. I remember the first time that they did that for me, and I was just in tears during the entire prayer. But I think even in that moment, during their prayer, they prayed for the father who in that situation was the abuser, and just that he would find Christ. And it was something that I hadn't thought of. I think in moments I was so angry taking that kid back home and seeing that the dad was still there. And I felt so much pain for the mom and the child, but I had so much anger that nothing had changed, that I was stuck dropping this child back off, knowing what was happening in that home, that praying for the father in that situation, I had not considered in the slightest, but it had so much weight and reminded me that everyone needs that prayer, not just the people that we see as victims, but the people that are hurting in their own ways and that are hurting others need Jesus as much as the people that are being hurt. So that
that's so interesting. And I mean, just by way of clarification, this is like when you drop that child off, that's after this has been reported and everything's like kind of gone through thing. And when the system says, yes, this is the right next step, you can still feel very, that can still be really hard personally to be like, I'm not sure I don't think this is the best next step, but to process through that, I mean, each part of that it's so profound hearing you talk about, how community is so important for each part of that, both the like tangible help, the practical, and the emotional support in the midst of it, and the spiritual strength and the prayer that that comes into that. But anyways, I think I interrupted you. I think you said there was a second.
Yeah.
Okay.
My second one is I, in this volunteer work, have learned to rely on God and trust in Him so much more. And so, especially in that same situation, dropping that kid back off, that child asked me a lot of questions, and when I first took the child in, they didn't understand abuse or didn't believe that their father was doing it. And so there were a lot of heavy conversations and questions, talks about CPS coming to their home and what that child had been through, that dropping the kid back off was so hard. And on my way home, just the realization and the prayer that, like, there is nothing that I can do. I have to rely on God, and I have to put my trust in Him that He is going to take care of this family. And that's all that you can do. So the trust in God that I have had to build up, my faith is so much stronger in so many different ways that I didn't even know that I needed, just from what I've dealt with.
So beautiful to see how God meets us, right? In these moments where we feel powerless, or maybe when we are faced with our powerlessness. Yeah.
It's funny. Like, you go into it thinking, I am helping others, and this is my way of showing God to others. But it's so funny, the amount of moments of need that you feel, even just emotionally, that lead you right back to God. I tell people often that, yes, I am volunteering at Olive Crest, but I am growing as much through this as I hope that other kids and parents are growing as well.
That's so beautiful. So one of the reasons why I think it's such a great opportunity to highlight this is not, number one, it's amazing what the Lord's doing in you, through you. It's also the opportunity to highlight, not because it's not like, you're the only one sacrificing, doing it. Like, God is working through our church family and different people in all sorts of different ways. What stands out to me is just the unique shape this takes, and the unique opportunity that you have. I mean, there's so many different people involved in things in our city in foster care from different angles. But I'm not sure this is one that most people are familiar with.
Yeah.
Right? Like, when you think of, how could I get involved? Like, I don't know if this is on the menu in most people's heads. I think it's fascinating in that way. Is hosting the main way that people are involved and volunteer with Olive Crest? Are there like different ways? Like, what are the different ways? And you're not like an Olive Crest staff member or anything, so you don't have to. You just tell me I don't know for things you don't know. But I'm just curious the different ways people can be and are involved with Olive Crest.
Yeah, hosting is the biggest way to volunteer for my awareness. And I do always tell people, you will have to give something up. Unless you are a homebody that never does anything. Like, there are weekends that I'm free, but I have to, like, break a plan or bring a child to dinner with my family. But I know that they're also involved in fostering in some forms. And they do have, like, community representatives that try to build relationships with churches and things like that. So those are different ways that I am aware of, though I'm sure that there are more.
And what, to your knowledge, what are are most, you might not know these things, so that's okay. I'm gonna ask you anyways. Like, are most needs in that, like, days kind of size, or are they, like, sometimes they're days, oftentimes they're weeks, sometimes they're months too? Like, do you have any sense for that? I mean, I know you probably only get calls regarding the ones that are days. So you can set a preference, but I do get, at least I think I get all of the requests within my area. So from what I've seen, I get
several texts, probably a day. I'd say at least 4 text messages a day of parents that are requesting support. Most of them are typically 1 to 2 days. Sometimes you'll see a week for a parent that needs rehab or something like that. I've only seen a couple that have been a month or longer. But typically they are 1 to 2 days, 3 to 4 days. Yeah.
That's interesting. I think opens the door for, for people in a different kind of way. That's really,
and it's really helpful to be on an automatic notification system. It doesn't feel like there is so much obligation to say yes. If you feel like you have too much happening in your weekend that you can't change, it feels better to me to look at the list and say, okay, am I free for any of this, or is there just too much happening this weekend and I can't do it this week?
Totally.
But yeah, there's so much open-ended because it's just a text message or an email, and they give you the phone number to call if you can support. And so it doesn't feel like it's like face-to-face confronting you. We need your help right now. It's, hey, these are the things that we need support in. Call us if you can do it.
That's awesome. Well, super helpful. Well, is there anything else that, I don't know, you were hoping that we'd get to or touch on that we haven't, or any maybe last encouragements or comments before we go?
Yeah, encouragement. Olive Crest is a great organization. Feel free to reach out to me. Ask me questions if you have any questions about it. It is work, but it is good work. And at the end of the day, I've always enjoyed what I've done. But just get into your community. I think that LA is such a large community with such a need. One of my favorite experiences in volunteering with Olive Crest is showing these communities Christ. A lot of these families are not Christian families. They haven't grown up in the church. And so sometimes it's been cool meeting parents and, asking them, hey, can I take your child to church with me on Sunday? Is that okay with you? I've had parents come back and say, hey, what church do you go to? Like, I want to get involved. And then showing children that haven't experienced that in their home, teaching them how to pray before a meal, doing a Bible study with a kid that's never touched a Bible, that doesn't know what a Bible is, showing them Jesus for the first time is an amazing experience. And it might be their only experience having that. So being able to do that for kids that are at risk in so many different ways is a blessing.
I really appreciate that. And I appreciate the encouragement there towards, in one way or another, being engaged in our communities.
Yes.
Right? This is part of what it means to be a part of the church, be a follower of Jesus.
Yeah.
Every follower of Jesus isn't called to be a host home for Olive Crest.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
But every one of us, as we follow Jesus, is called to live generous and ready to share, which means eyes open to the city around us, engaged, learning, wanting to know, wanting to look for the opportunities that the Lord has placed around us, and the needs are huge and overwhelming. I mean, just in the foster care realm itself, the needs are overwhelming, and the needs are overwhelming in a lot of different directions. Sometimes the overwhelming scope of that can freeze us and keep us from doing anything.
Yeah.
And I think this is a helpful reminder. Number one, an encouragement for all of us to be engaged and involved and looking for ways to, and that there are often ways to serve, ways to sacrifice, even in significant ways that are doable, that maybe are more creative than the ones we can just think in our head. And so just the encouragement to ask, to get involved, and super thankful for all of it. I mean, I'd love for more and more people to get involved in Olive Crest. I'd love to as pastors, feel forced into making Olive Crest a key partner of ours as a church, because that's come not because as pastors we decided, we need to partner with Olive Crest and now we'll recruit people to do it, but because God was working in our church, and we're simply responding to the ways He's building His church around us. So. Thanks so much for your faithfulness. Thanks for the ways you're sacrificing in that, and for your openness to share about it. It really it's edifying in a lot of different ways.
Yeah, thank you. It's been great doing this.
Well, I appreciate you also like taking the time to, sit in front of a microphone and you have this like, I know when you're sitting in a microphone, it's a little bit of less natural of conversation, but I really enjoy it. So thanks for doing it. Thanks for sharing it with the family. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you all for listening. We love you, and we'll see you on Sunday.